In the water off southern Spain, a sailboat is about to lose its rudder. Not to a storm, not to a hidden rock, not to bad luck. To a decision. The crew feels the first hit through the wheel, a jolt like running aground. Except there's nothing to run aground on. The water here is deep. And then the boat starts to turn, slowly, on its own. Something below is pushing it in a circle. Since 2020, a small group of orcas in these waters has interacted with boats nearly 700 times. Most of those boats limped home with a wrecked rudder. A handful didn't come home at all, pushed until they took on water and sank. And the most unsettling part isn't that they did it once, it's that it spread. The younger orcas, animals that weren't even born when this started, are now doing it too. Which leaves scientists staring at the one question this whole channel is built on: what is actually going on inside their heads? To understand what's happening, start with the place. The Strait of Gibraltar is a 9-mile bottleneck between two continents, the only door connecting the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. Everything that moves between those two bodies of water has to pass through this one narrow gap. That includes bluefin tuna, huge, fast, fatty fish that migrate through the strait every year. And it includes the animals that hunt them, a critically endangered population of orcas, fewer than 40 individuals left in the entire region. But that same 9-mile door is one of the busiest sailing routes on Earth. So the orcas chasing tuna and the humans chasing a summer holiday are squeezed into the exact same water. And for decades, that overlap produced almost nothing. The orcas hunted. The boats sailed. The two ignored each other. But in the summer of 2020, that changed. Sailors started radioing in with the same bizarre report. Boats were arriving in port with their rudders cracked, twisted, or bitten clean off. And the behavior was weirdly precise. The orcas didn't attack the people. They didn't ram the middle of the hull. They didn't bite the anchor, the keel, or the propeller. They went for one part: the rudder. The single moving piece at the back of the boat that controls where it goes. They'd press on it, push the boat in slow circles, sometimes snap the rudder stalk entirely. And then, this is the strange part, they'd often just stop, lose interest, swim off, leaving a crew drifting in a boat that could no longer steer. Now, your first instinct is probably the reasonable one. These are just accidents. Big animals, clumsy collisions, a boat that happened to be in the way. But accidents don't hit the same small target hundreds of times across completely different boats for 4 straight years. That's not clumsiness. That's a pattern. And a pattern that appears out of nowhere, spreads through a population, and survives for years. That has to begin somewhere. With one animal. And that's where the story gets personal. Researchers tracking these animals gave the group a nickname: the Gladis orcas. It's not a species or a scientific label. It's just the name the people watching them started to use. And at the very center of the story is one female they call White Gladis. The leading hypothesis about her is heavy. Some researchers believe White Gladis lived through a traumatic encounter with a boat, a violent collision, or getting tangled in fishing gear during the tuna season, and survived it. And that the very first rudder interactions may have started as her response to that moment. A defensive reflex, a precaution, or something we don't have a clean word for. Here's why one traumatized animal could matter so much. Orca society doesn't run on the biggest male. It runs on the oldest females, mothers, grandmothers. Killer whales are one of the only species on Earth where females go through menopause and then live for decades more. And they spend those decades leading. The matriarch is the pod's library. She remembers where the food is in a bad year. She remembers which beaches are safe. And the younger orcas don't just follow her, they study her. In some populations, sons stay with their mother for her entire life, never leaving her side. So when a matriarch starts doing something new, it doesn't die with her. It travels. The young ones copy it, the same way a human toddler copies a parent's habit long before they understand why they're doing it. And this is exactly where I have to slow you down, because the story practically writes itself, doesn't it? A wounded mother, striking back at the machines that hurt her, teaching her children to do the same. Revenge, passed down like an heirloom. It's a great story. It's also the exact story scientists refuse to sign off on, because the word revenge smuggles in a huge assumption that the orca is thinking the way you would think, holding a grudge the way you hold a grudge, and projecting a human motive onto an animal is the single fastest way to get its mind completely wrong. Because there's a second explanation, and it's almost the opposite of revenge, not trauma, play. Orcas are famous among researchers for something they literally call fads. The most famous example, in 1987, off the coast of Washington state, one female started swimming around with a dead salmon balanced on her head, like a hat, for no reason anyone could find. Within weeks, other orcas were doing it. Then other pods were doing it. A pointless, silly trend, sweeping through the population like a fashion. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, they all stopped. It burned out. A craze with no purpose, invented and abandoned by wild animals. So which one is the rudder behavior? Is it a grudge? Trauma turned outward? Is it a game? A young animal that discovered pushing one specific part of a boat produces an enormous, satisfying reaction, and does it again because it's fun? Or is it something in between that we don't have a category for? And here's the honest, uncomfortable answer. It might not be one thing at all. The behavior could have started as trauma with white Gladis, and then mutated into a game for the juveniles who copied her. Kids who never had the scary experience, who only ever saw the fun part, who are now doing it for reasons that have nothing to do with why it began. But step back and notice what both explanations secretly depend on. Whether it's revenge or recreation, the behavior only exists across the whole group because these animals can watch each other, copy each other, and pass it on. And that, not the sunk boats, is the part that should genuinely stop you cold. Here's the idea that reframes this entire story. When a behavior is invented by one individual, taught to others, and passed down across generations who never invented it themselves, scientists have a specific word for that. And it is not instinct, it's culture. We like to think culture is a human thing, our monopoly. But stay with me, because in the back half of this, I'm going to show you the evidence that these orcas may be running an actual tradition, building it in real time, right in front of our boats, and why, once you see it that way, the sinking yachts become almost beside the point. Look at how this spread. It did not stay with one grieving female. Nearly 700 recorded interactions across 4 years, multiple boats damaged badly enough to sink, and critically, new, younger orcas performing the behavior. Animals that could not possibly have shared White Gladys's original experience, because for some of them, that experience happened before they existed. Translate that into human terms, so it actually lands. Imagine one person in a small town inventing a strange, specific habit. Then their kids pick it up. Then the neighbor's kids pick it up. Children who never met the person who started it and have no idea why it began. The habit has now outlived its own reason for existing. It's just what this town does now. That is what may be happening under the water off Spain. And orcas already have the machinery to do exactly this. This isn't a stretch for them. Different orca pods speak in different dialects, distinct, learned sets of calls, handed from mother to calf like a family accent. 2 pods can swim in the same ocean and literally not share a language. And it goes way past sound. In Norway, orcas herd herring into a tight ball and slap it with their tails, a technique called carousel feeding. In Argentina, orcas deliberately beach themselves onto the sand to snatch sea lion pups, then wriggle back into the sea, and they teach this terrifying, dangerous move to their young on purpose over years. In Antarctica, they generate waves together to wash seals off the ice. None of these are instincts. Each one exists in one population and nowhere else. Each one is taught. Invented by an individual. Taught to the next generation. Inherited by animals that never chose it. That's the fingerprint of culture, and orcas leave it everywhere. So the rudder behavior isn't bizarre or out of character. It is precisely the kind of thing an orca mind is built to create. And maybe you're thinking, fine, animals learn things. Birds learn songs, monkeys wash potatoes. We've heard this before. So why does this one feel different? Why does the orca story sit in your stomach in a way the potato washing doesn't? Here's why. Most behavior in the animal kingdom is fixed. A spider spins the exact web its ancestors spun 100 million years ago. It didn't learn it. It didn't decide it. It can't change it even if it wanted to. The instructions are burned in, and the spider just runs them. But what the Gladis orcas are doing is the exact opposite of fixed. It appeared inside a single lifetime, not over evolutionary time. It's spread by watching, not by breeding. And it's being refined by juveniles who are, in a sense, getting better at it. That is not instinct running on autopilot. That is a mind that can notice something brand new in the world and decide, on its own, that it's worth repeating. Which is the whole reason the boats were never really the story. A sunk yacht is a headline. It's dramatic, it's shareable, it puts orcas on the news. But the thing sitting underneath that headline is far bigger. It's an animal culture inventing a brand new tradition in real time, and us, on the surface, only able to guess at what it means to them. And notice how little we can actually say for certain. We can't ask them. We can't interview White Gladys. We can only watch the surface, the broken rudders, the drifting boats, the young ones learning, and try to reconstruct a mind we will never directly see. We opened with a boat losing its rudder to a decision. And after everything, I still can't tell you whose decision it was, or why. A grudge? A game? A tradition none of them even remember starting? What I can tell you is that something down there is choosing, and teaching, and handing it to the next generation. And it's doing all of that in an ocean we barely understand. If a pod of orcas can build a tradition from scratch and hand it down, it forces a bigger question. How many other animals are running cultures we've simply never noticed? I made an entire video on the one animal that might be smarter than a great ape. It's on screen right now. Go find out which one it is. The ocean has been keeping secrets like this the entire time. We're only just starting to listen.